Hello, everybody. Starting a little bit early just to get the feed to sync up and not be all pixelated when we first kick off. All right, so we're going to be covering a lot of stuff tonight. It's going to be very information dense. As Bill used to say, grab a pen and paper, you're going to want to take notes. The topic tonight is the insanities and the insults and the plans to destroy and starve out humans, mankind. What is that black thing? What the hell? What is that? Is that a cut? Anyway, um, it's well underway, and we're talking about Harry Carey, John Kerry, and the czar of climate change. Move over. What do you call it? The inconvenient truth, Al Gore. You are no longer of relevance. There's a new dark sorcerer in town who's been here forever. Yeah, so we're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss the Skull and Bones Society, from which produced people like the Bushes, Senator McCain, and John Kerry. I believe they were in the same class, Kerry and McCain. They most certainly were involved in something I'm going to read to you from this book, Hidden History by Donald Jeffries. Now, I have to say, when I first read this book, I didn't know who the hell Bo Gritz was until I started listening to The Hour of the Time. And there is a short section in here about Bo Gritz, however you want to pronounce that, Bobo Gritz, as as Bill Cooper refers to him. And he says that, he's a nefarious son of a bitch who works for the FBI. And I would tend to agree with Bill because he did his research. And so he also despised the spotlight as being a socialist, communist hate rag. And a lot of Donald Jeffries cites, he cites that publication an awful lot. Now, I like Donald Jeffries. I really appreciate the books that he's put out. But I think some of the stuff that he goes off of, if he's going strictly off of one source, I'm not saying he's doing that. I'm just saying that there is something more to be said about Bo Gritz. He paints him out to be kind of a hero who is trying to stop drug trafficking and stuff like that, which I don't buy that at all whatsoever. And that might have been a cover because, what they do is they know if there's going to be pushback, might as well lead the pushback too. That's what they call, controlled opposition. They put their people in to create the dialogue that they can control rather than have somebody else independently start questioning things, and now they don't have control of that dialogue. You see what I mean? They'll steer it into a minute detail rather than focus on the main problem. So, Bo Gritz, apparently, according to him, Donald Jeffries, was also the inspiration for Rambo. I don't think so. But anyway, we're going to talk about Rex 84. What I picked out tonight. Rex 84, it's a short, very short, like 1-2 paragraphs. And then we're going to talk about the POW MIA cover-up, because that involved John Kerry. And we should remember who the hell this asshole is. And he and Senator McCain did some terrible things to veterans of foreign war. Or if you want to call them POWs, prisoners of war, MIAs, missing in action, you can do that as well. But he shut the books at a lot of people that there was not just circumstantial evidence that they were still being held prisoner in these horrible conditions, but that those countries themselves flat out told us that they were there, and they still denied the families in the congressional hearing. They screamed at not exactly widows yet, but widows after they turned their back on them, screaming at them. And that was acceptable. And this guy actually, after this was 92 or 4 that happened, so he then went on to run for president twice. Wasn't it twice? Piece of shit. Anyway, so I'm talking about McCain when I talk about that. But Kerry also ran against Bush and that the mock opposition of the two Skull and Bones kids. But let's go ahead and, what time is it? 6:02? We can get started. Sipping my Nespresso. Espresso from a Nespresso machine. Thanks, Mom. I think that was like 6, 7 years ago. My mom sent me that. Greatest gift ever. Okay. And that's Pete's. Peets. For people who can't spell Pete. Yeah. That's good stuff. All right, so I'm going to start with discussing this, and we're going to jump kind of back and forth, but it has like a non-linear point to why I'm making these points in this order that I'm doing it. If you watched last night's The Rose and Other Symbolism, you really should. You really should, because everything builds on itself. On on the other one, it's a progression of understanding of things. Now, we were talking about tunnel boring last night. Now, we are led to believe that the Boring Company by Elon Musk is just because it's a sarcastic name, because they make flamethrowers and stuff like that, but they call it the Boring Company, like it's meh, meh. But it could be tunnel boring, and it could be a cover, and that's why they make stupid things like flamethrowers, unless they're fighting aliens in that movie, and they just need flamethrowers a lot. To or they're gonna just roast people because that's the fun stuff that eugenicists like to do. Let's read this article first, and then I'm gonna play. I've got lots of clips. I've got reading to do out of this, talking about Kerry and McCain, and let me tell you what else we got on the docket. We've got George Bush, John Kerry, 322 Skull and Bones, a short clip. We've got some more information on Skull and Bones. The WHO Global Governance Meeting, the World Economic Forum. These are all brief things I just have to cover real quick. The World Government Summit, worldgovernmentsummit.org. I think that just says new tab. I can probably get rid of that one. Climate Boogeyman, The Criminal Insanity of the Global Warming Climate Change Hoax by M.S. King, one of my previous guests. I'm going to talk about his book real quick. The World Health Assembly 2023. 76 World Health Assembly, that's a part of it. And then the WHA, which is World Health Assembly, Resolution on Climate Change and Health. And it's like a proposal. And we're going to skim through it because it's 11 pages and I've already got so much here to read. Michelle Bachmann is the first article that I'm going to read here. She was a former congresswoman. And then Michelle Bachmann explains why all eyes should be on the 76th. And we're going to start off with a Bill Cooper little short clip of what he sees the world to be in the future. Now, there's something else here we have to go over. Okay, so G. Edward Griffin warns against a cashless system and says our lives are at stake. And then it goes right into the climate czar John Kerry calls for reduction in food production to stop global warming. And that's the reason for this video in the first place. And there's also top 15 remarkable reasons to indicate that global warming is a hoax. And then we go over to, where's the one that, okay, I want to start with this because I think this is funny. I called this episode Harry Kerry. Let me just put up the screen. Since we're going to end up having to do that anyway, I might as well just do it now. We got present, share screen, entire screen. Do the audio, hit share. Oops. Silly me. Biggity bam. And then just adjust for taste. I like me over there. You like me over there or over here? Left, right, body blow. All right, there we go. Now let's go to the one I just lost. Harry Kerry. Okay, so the Urban Dictionary for what Harry Kerry means is a sexual act where the male inserts both testicles into the female's vagina. It is a play on words based on the name of the famous Chicago Cubs announcer, blah, 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 who cares? And then it says, what does Harry Kerry mean? Originally answered, what is the meaning of the phrase to commit Harry Kerry? In casual use and pronounced as you have written it, it means to commit suicide. It refers to the Japanese suicide ritual, harakiri, which is probably what they do in that little forest. Is that China or Japan? The forest where everybody hangs themselves or kills themselves in some way. That's actually one of the reasons why Logan Paul got a little bit of crap, because he was supposedly posing, smiling at one of the hanging bodies. I don't think it was real. No. Ritual suicide by disembowelment practiced by the Japanese samurai or formally decreed by a court in lieu of the death penalty. So, when they would stick the katana blade in their stomach and give themselves a smiley face on their gut, that was usually what the Ronin did. You know, a warrior without a master. Because they had no master, they no longer had purpose. Because they weren't individuals. That sucks, not being an individual, doesn't it? Because if that's the best you got to do as you can't adapt, huh? Mispronounced Kiri, or it's the cutting the stomach, often misspelled, pronounced, or harikari by American English speakers. Harakiri is written with the same kanji and seppuku, but in reverse order with the okurigana. I hope everybody understood what that meant and cared. All right, let's move on. I wanted to establish what Harry Carey means, and I thought it was also funny that Harry Carey with Hairy is a sexual act where a male inserts both testicles into the female's vagina. They make it sound so scientific. All right. Talk to Bill here. Let's get some clarity in this joint. Good? All right. Yeah, this is where I have to kind of screw it. If you guys can't hear it, tell me. Send me a message. Biggie. This is short. It's 1:15 into it. It was a bunch of nonsense about the Matrix for the first minute and 15, so I started where it should start.
Well, let me give you a vision of the future. There will be no money. There won't be any driver's licenses. There won't be any insurance cards or anything like that. Everybody will have an account on a computer. Everybody will have a computer chip implant somewhere on their body that will access the computer. Everybody, when they go to work, will get so many credits for that work, and they can go out and wave their little computer chip in their hand or whatever it is under a scanner at the supermarket and buy whatever they've got credits to buy. And if they don't have credits, they got to stay home until they get some credits. What's insane about it is that the American people think that that would be convenient or that that would be good for them. It is the ultimate in-run goal to enslave the populace and to steal what's left that's not already stolen by the elite who are engineering and machinizing all of this stuff to make it come about. The goal of a debt-based economy is not to get caught stealing. And that's what they're doing, stealing the wealth and the substance and the nation right out from under us. And that's the only end result that can come out of a debt-based economy. And the only way that they can't get caught is if the people allow them to go to a cashless system. Then they can never get caught. But if they don't go to a cashless system, eventually the economy will collapse and they're going to get caught. They want to go to a cashless system, and that's why they ultimately have to. Anybody understands how this economy works and what the end result of a debt-based economy where the interest is never created or printed, and the way that it works, have to collapse or they have to go to a totally cashless system in order that they don't get caught and are able to perpetuate the theft. The only way to keep it going until they do that is to keep creating more money, which creates more inflation, which devalues the value of what everybody is earning and making, and that's why everybody feels more and more strain every year and keeps sucking more and more out of the system through the bogus Internal Revenue Service income tax system so that they can keep from getting caught as long as possible. Well, they are 3-year-olds. That's their mentality. The average American has never had an original thought in his entire life or her entire life. And if they're not told what to think, they cannot think. And that's the truth. Clinton didn't do anything except eliminate the deficit. You know how you eliminate the deficit? You either don't spend as much so that you stay within the bounds allotted by Congress, or you have Congress pass more allotments so that you can spend more than what you need to spend. It did not pay off the national debt. did not balance the budget. Have a deficit. A deficit is when you spend more than what you've been given. So when he says we got a zero deficit, that means absolutely nothing except Congress is allotting more money for the government to spend because the government is not spending less. They're spending more than they ever have had.
Okie doke. So Bill, decades ago, told us what was going to happen, and now it's happening. So is he still? What did Joe Rogan call him in that video that I put out? Fucking insane, right? I think that's what he said. Is he still insane there, Joey? You little shittard, change agent screwball. All right, let's go to the next pun, which I believe I want to start with. Since we talked about that, let's go with this one. G. Edward Griffin warns against a cashless system and says our lives are at stake. Now, I'm going to read this, but if I disagree with something, I'm going to tell you. The world is now in the hands of the banking institutions. Now? That's not new, buddy. 1913 was a while ago, bud. Says G. Edward Griffin, author of Creature from Jekyll Island, which was a complete plagiarism from Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullins, and never given credit in the book for having stolen basically everything from that book to make his own. And founder of the Red Pill University. Yes, I did push his wheelchair, and I did get to meet G. Edward Griffin, and I'll probably go back to the next Red Pill if you guys help me out with that. But that doesn't mean I have to be blind to certain things. My only loyalty is to the truth. All right. He says that large banks have become so powerful that they are now regulating the governments. Now? What are all these things like? I think he might be a little silly here, acting like this is all brand new. He concludes that investors will eventually lose their freedom of choice in the market because we're moving towards cashless society. He compared the new system that is planned to a military system where necessities are provided, not owned, and are awarded according to compliance with the system and rank. In the second video, Griffin said, we will not survive the system by figuring out how to hide from it, and added, our lives and our freedom are at stake here. He also believes the banking crisis is not a surprise since it allows for the transition toward the cashless society with fewer banks. Cash gives people autonomy. It allows them to be independent of others, he argues. Finally, he claims that, well, it's not really the cash, it's the coin, it's the actual true wealth, the true, the thing that's been traded forever, silver and gold, not the fiat. So if you make that distinction, then I agree. But to make a claim for fiat, I don't think that's really intelligent. Finally, he claims that de-dollarization is inevitable because the national debt can never be repaid, and it may happen soon. See, that was intelligent because that's exactly what Bill said. Now, these are two videos and many other videos. I'm not going to go through all that because I don't know how long they are, and we have a lot to cover. If you guys want to look at this, it's Need to Know News, and you just look for this is the most recent article. You can sign up for the newsletter. Need to Know News. Need to know .news. Okay? All right, that one's done. Now, climate czar John Kerry calls for a reduction in food production to stop global warming. So let's starve everyone to death to stop global warming. What part is stopping the global warming? Having fewer people or having fewer cows? You better not fart too much in the New World Order because then you'll be next. Stay away from Taco Bell. That's a sure. That's like writing your own ticket to assassination to save the climate. Biden appointed John Kerry. Yeah, all Mexican food off the table. Sorry. And anything with curry. Biden appointed John Kerry as the first ever U.S. special presidential envoy for climate. That's quite the made up little tag there. With a budget of a $14 billion. What does that mean? You don't need the letter A. So presidential envoy for climate with a budget of $14 billion and staff of 45 people. At a recent meeting of AIM for climate, John Kerry thundered that farmers worldwide create 1/3 of global greenhouse gases. So he's attacking farmers, the people who produce all of our food. It's something that communist socialists have been doing for friggin' ever. They would go out in the middle of goddamn nowhere and murder full families because they were farmers. because that means you're independent and you're not dependent on the government. And then they almost starved to death because they killed all the farmers. And then we sent them aid because we're assholes too. Well, our government is. Moving on. An amount that must come down if the world is to reach net zero emissions. Net zero emissions means nobody's alive. Kerry tried to gaslight the public when he said, we have to reduce emissions from the food system to stop a 2-degree Fahrenheit temperature change. He is essentially calling for a reduction in food production to prevent hypothetical future starvation. What? This sounds almost as backward thinking as Sabbatean Frankism. Oh wait, that's what they're about. Never mind. He is essentially calling for a reduction in food production to prevent hypothetical future starvation. So starve people now so you don't have to starve them later. Got it. Thanks. The Netherlands is an example of attacking farmers and the food supply in the name of climate. Here's him smelling his finger. All right. We want to watch a little bit of this? All right. Is that even clickable? How long is this? It better not be long.
In his usual lying hysteria, John Kerry, who serves as the first U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, told a series of lies and announced that our government is planning to shut down U.S. agriculture. They call it innovation because they are confident that our pain and desperation will someday give birth to an innovative new solution. Or at least that's their cover story.
Emissions from the food system alone are projected to cause another 0.5 degree of warming by mid-century on the current course that we are today. And instead of being on a course to be able to hold the Earth's temperature increase to 1.5 degrees, we're actually on a course to hit around 3 degrees right now. And you just can't continue to both warm the planet while also expecting to feed it. Doesn't work. And as is so often the case with respect to the climate crisis, we have to fight on.
You realize he's nonchalantly, declaring. He's basically declaring the murder of millions and millions of people with that statement, right? Like he just nonchalantly says, "Well, we can't feed everybody, so they're going to die. Otherwise, the climate, our Gaia, our God Gaia, is going to suffer."
Multiple fronts simultaneously. This is the biggest organizational effort that I think we have faced, certainly since World War II, but perhaps ever.
Since World War II, when the globalists won, thanks to the U.S.-Soviet connection there.
So we have to reduce emissions from the food system to keep the 1.5 degrees alive. Why do we have to keep 1.5 degrees alive? Because scientists, as a basis of physics and mathematics, not ideology and politics or party labels or anything else.
We know about their science by now, don't we?
A matter of physics and mathematics and some biology and chemistry have told us these are the consequences.
Everything out of his mouth is a lie. The exact opposite of what he says is true. The scientists he is referring to are almost all on the United Nations payroll. The real scientific community of the world realize that the world's climate has changed in extreme, erratic ways over the years without human pollution. In one of the most recent studies, Our House University researchers found that the Arctic had ice-free summers just 10,000 years ago. And ice core samples show that the Earth is in a cooling period, not a warming one. But these decrepit old gatekeepers want us all dead because the system isn't giving up control.
And I think to those in civil society, we got to push more. We got to be more militant, maybe.
We have to be more militant, maybe, which means we have to round you up if you don't comply, or just round you up and dispatch of you in a giant pit.
President Biden has demanded an all-of-government initiative. We are all working together. Every department of our government is engrossed in this. And if we make the right choices, There's no question in my mind we can win this battle.
While
He's speaking in military terms, winning this battle. Who do you think the enemy is? Magical climate change or the people? This is a Skull and Bones member, remember? Something that was modeled off of the Freemasonic Order. Something that's modeled off of the mystery schools.
our food supply is under terrorist attack by our own government, the power grid is being targeted for a false flag. And a story is already being spun to blame it on American patriots. Meanwhile, the communist Chinese are meeting their bogus climate change quotas in a different way. They are spray painting rocks and sand green, and they are planting vast fields of fake flowers made of white rocks stuck on the ends of steel rebar. According to local translators, this is being done to make areas look more green in aerial photography. Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese.
All right. Well, there you have it. And then like 10 more minutes of commercials. That's usually how that rolls. Okay, so next. Top 15 remarkable reasons that indicate global warming is a hoax. Now, I want to show you this real quick because this book here, I don't think it's still available on Amazon. It says buy on Amazon. I don't think any of his books are. I think they've all been banned. But you can go to, I think it's Real History Channel. Let me check. If it's not The Real, it's Real History. I just have to take the out. There it is. Okay, realhistorychan.com. And then you can go to banned books. No, I don't know if you guys remember, but look for it. Michael S. King was on my show. And there's Climate Boogeyman right there. These are all his books. But yeah, the Climate Boogeyman. Let's see if I can scroll down to it. There it is. 200 pages, 450 illustrations, over 120 positive reviews on Amazon before it was banned. Informative and funny, global warming, climate change is a criminal plot by the globalists to set up world government. And it was a good book. And if you want me to read from that sometime, pay me. All right. Here comes the next one. Where are we at? All right, so this is right here in front of me. So let's see what they say. The climate of the Earth is warming. So these are the top 15 unbelievable reasons that prove global warming might be a hoax. Might be. That's not a very strong statement there, buddy. So it says the human impact on Earth's temperature is believed to only account for 10% of the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. It is highly unlikely that humans are having a massive negative impact on the stability of climate worldwide. You know that what they're doing with the sun is actually, and what they're doing with like bunker fuels and stuff like that, they're trying to make something as devastating to the climate as a volcanic eruption. They're attempting to do that on their own. So any of this CO2 bullshit, they're purposely polluting to blot out the sun at the same time. And they're telling us that we are expendable because we eat things that fart. It is highly unlikely that humans are... Okay, we already said that. Some of the revelations in this list include computer models are programmed to assume that CO2 is the largest climate driver when the sun is really the major driver of the climate. The assumption that CO2 is a pollutant is completely false. Global precipitation and crop production soar as the Earth gradually warms. Right, and CO2 is plant freaking food. They consume it and give us oxygen. You know, that thing called Fukushima that dumped into the ocean, all that contaminated iodine 133 and all kinds of other stuff, water, radioactive elements into the water, that killed off a bunch of the microphilia, or whatever, however way you say that, in the ocean that provides, the algae and stuff like that provide the majority of the oxygen. Oxygen is just one component in what we breathe in the air, but it's an important one. And oxygen itself is at all-time lows thanks to their own misdeeds. Mossad attacked that place. They set charges. They destroyed that reactor number 3, I believe it was, in Daiichi, and caused this thing to be a giant self-feeding dirty bomb that continues to pollute and destroy things. And if we think that maybe, some of the illnesses that we've had on the West Coast and everywhere at this point after so many years after Fukushima, they're gonna make a new disease every time and a new virus to cover up the reasonings for that, because the food chain and the food supply, cow's milk is coming up radioactive, was at least years ago, because of what probably happened in Fukushima. So what do we think? Do you think we're getting sick because our food is just like horribly contaminated, or do you think it's because of an invisible bug? I don't know. It could be either way, except it's not a virus. Global warming is the name given to the current belief that the Earth's temperature has been gradually increasing over the past few hundred years since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution. Also brought on by industry, also brought on by corporation, not by you and me. The human impact on this is believed to only account for 10% of all the greenhouse. We already heard that. Okay, the climate of the Earth is warming up rapidly is claim 1. If you look up HAD-CRUT 3, Surface Temperature Index, which is based in the UK, records show warming to 1878, cooling to 1911, warming to 1941, cooling to 1964, warming to 1998, cooling to 2011. The increase in temperature between 1964 was the same rate as recorded between 1911 to 1941. Numerous satellites, ground stations, and weather balloons show recorded cooling since 2001. The current warnings of temperature increase of 0.6 degrees to 0.8 degrees are nothing irregular and fit into the natural rate of warming recorded over the last few centuries. That's why they had to say they have to reduce it by 2. Okay, because that makes it sound more scary. The placement of these global weather stations should be taken into account. They are mostly based in so-called heat islands in cities where temperatures are normally higher, and few have been placed in rural countryside locations. Well, they couldn't put them next to the cows that make all that methane, could they? Let's say, in case you didn't know, a 2 megawatt windmill is made up of 260 tons of steel that required 300 tons of iron ore and 170 tons of coking coal, all mined, transported, and produced by hydrocarbons. A windmill could spin until it falls apart and never generate as much energy as was invested in building it. Bam! Bitches. Plus, I think they actually create winds, not get pushed by them. And that's just my opinion. And I think they also emit stuff. And they kill a bunch of birds. But anyway, chop them right in half. 2 teams have corrected the average temperature reading between all the stations and have reduced the reported increase in temperature by half since 1980. Up to today, there has never been any sort of significantly extreme event caused by warming. There was global warming about 1,000 years ago, medieval warm period. Hey, guess what? The world didn't end then either, though, did it? It is a cyclic matter, no need for alarmism. Right, it's natural. We're just paying attention to it and freaking out because they're manipulating data and trying to scare people into doing things like giving up all their rights. Spoons do make people fat. I have a spoon that constantly is just like looking at me and like, dude, I'm like, leave me alone. All right. Throughout history, the climate of this planet has fluctuated greatly. It says reports show that the global climate has been cooling for the past 1,000 years, and recently temperatures have skyrocketed. Throughout history, the climate of this planet has fluctuated greatly. Many ancient people and religions alike talk about a great flood, which was probably caused by the melting of ice caps or glaciers. Recorded history tells us of a warm period from around 1000 to 1200 AD, which allowed the Vikings to farm crops on Greenland. This was followed by a little ice age. Since the end of the 17th century, the average global temperatures has been right. You know what makes more of a difference in any of this is the magnetic field flux of the Earth and what it allows in from the sun, and at what points on the Earth it allows it to come in because of the intensity and strength in certain areas of the magnetic field. But that's for a different topic, I guess. Except for the period of 1940 to 1970, in which the climate cooled off, Okay, which in turn led to global panic about global cooling. Right. Did you remember that when they were all crying that there's going to be a global ice age? And all of a sudden it's going to be, it's warming. And now they just call it climate change because they can't make up their mind. Over a century, stratocumulus clouds forming off the coastlines can turn the global temperature up or down by a few degrees, and the climate models cannot predict which way it will go. There's a lot of these, and I'm only on number 3. Maybe we'll get back to this, but this is a lot of talky talk, and I'm already getting tired. Oh, yeah. We gotta look at that. That's part of my book research. Ophidiophobia, in case you want to know what it means to be afraid of snakes. Got this little fruit fly attacking me. Being or resembling a snake is what ophi means. Okay, let's go. And no, Pyrrhix is what they call the place that's trying to stop the 130,000 people who get bitten by a snake by creating envenomous drugs. Isn't that nice? Dr. Artis and I have talked about this for months and months. He's been on my show for over a year now. Okay, so let's play this. Because we're going to get into the John Kerry discussion. Let me just make sure I'm not missing something. No, we got that out. Yeah, that's a good one. We'll circle back to that. Alright. I can get rid of that, though. We already talked about it. Yeah. Let's do this one. You know what? And this is one of those times where I'm going to make this point again. Don't skimp out on production quality, picture quality, when you upload videos. If you're a content creator, if you have a channel, don't try to make the files so small because it uploads faster, because then you get crap like this. Look at this pixelated piece of shit. It's like on 240p. What are we doing here?
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America?
I kind of like the way Bush is sarcastic.
They are. I don't know. I haven't seen the rest.
Number 322?
First of all, he's not the nominee. And, look, I look for...
Are you prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
Like jacking off in a coffin and telling all your secrets?
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets, Tim, but one thing is not a secret. I disagree with this president's direction that he's taking the country. We can do a better job, and I intend to do it.
And we'll be watching. Be safe on the campaign trail. John Kerry, thanks for joining us. And we'll be right back.
What they don't tell you in this 54-second clip is that he died quite soon after that. This host. Don't ask the wrong questions, apparently. All right, where are we at? Les Skull and Bones. Don't worry, it's in English. And I apologize to all the French people who are wishing it wasn't. Again, don't shrink your files before you upload. It makes it very grainy and stupid looking.
January 1989.
I, George Herbert Walker Bush, do solemnly swear.
George Bush is sworn in as the 41st President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
He takes a solemn oath to the American people to uphold the Constitution.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
And then he kisses Mrs. Crowley, Alistair Crowley's daughter, Barbara Pierce.
11 years later, his son, George W. Bush, hopes to follow in his father's footsteps. But few Americans realize that both father and son have already taken an oath to a mysterious and powerful secret society known as Skull and Bones.
That makes you jack off in a coffin with a ribbon around your dick.
At prestigious Yale University.
The society was actually founded on the Yale campus in the year 1832 by a General Russell, who modeled it upon German lodges of Freemasonry that used a lot of death's head imagery, skulls, skeletons, coffins, that sort.
Do you want to know why? Because the first pirates were the Templars, and they they hoisted the Union Jack, right? The skull and crossbones, and that's what the Skull and Bones is all about.
Sort of thing.
Ron Rosenbaum, a journalist whose work has appeared in the New York Times, has spent several years investigating Skull and Bones and its powerful members.
Skull and Bones is designed, I think, as a bonding ritual initially for the old money, old-fashioned, blue blood Eastern establishment.
In addition to both President Bush and his son, other distinguished members, or bonesmen as they're called, include Senator John Kerry of Massachusetts and conservative spokesman William F. Buckley, Jr. Each year, 15 new members are selected from the junior class in a ceremony known as Tap Night. Prospective members receive a tap on the shoulder from a bonesman. For these chosen few, this
They get tapped in the bum too, just so you know.
exclusive invitation means they are destined for greatness.
These 15 people are going to be part of an elite, not just an elite on the Yale campus, but an elite of American destiny. People who will guide the nation, people who consciously see themselves as having a mission to be America's leaders.
The new members are led to this forbidding and windowless structure on the Yale campus, known as the Tomb. And it's the secret meeting place of Skull and Bones.
There are all sorts of legends about what goes on that April night when the Skull and Bones
April, huh? Did they say April 19th by chance? I'm just curious.
members are tapped and are first brought to the tomb.
Exactly what happens behind these padlocked doors. Rumors include everything from bizarre sexual practices to grave robbing.
Part of the reason for the secrecy, I think, is it creates a mystique, inwardly and outwardly. It encourages the members of Skull and Bones to believe that they're so special, and that what goes on in the tomb is so highly fraught with deep meaning that it can't be uttered to the outside world.
Senator Kerry and Mr. Buckley politely declined our written request to speak with them about their membership in Skull and Bones. Mr. Bush also refused to comment. But we tracked down a bonesman named Julio Gonzalez, who is now an alderman in New Haven, Connecticut.
We're looking for you to give us maybe just one or two little secrets from Skull and Bones.
Well, I really appreciated my time in the organization. I think I'm not going to discuss it today, so I don't have any comments on it.
Students on campus are also in the dark when it comes to Skull and Bones, including this man who says he managed to sneak inside the courtyard of the Bonesman tomb.
I climbed in, I saw their yard, I saw their they have a sort of bird bath, and they have two skeletons looking at each other like this and holding a skull in between them. I don't know what any of it means.
Another student who has also been inside the courtyard.
They're saying, be quiet, otherwise the punishment is death. That's not too hard to figure out.
Was able to quickly shoot these never-before-seen photographs, including a shot of the mysterious fountain. He agreed to talk to us, but only if we kept his identity secret.
I don't want to get on these people's bad side. I mean, these are some of the most powerful people on the planet.
The daring student was surprised by what he saw inside the fountain.
There was actually some sort of red residue in the fountain, which I imagined to be blood. But I am feeling they do some strange rituals with the fountain. These two skeletons look like they're hushing people in some way.
Another of his photos shows a cryptic Wheel of Destiny.
It had a spinning device on it. And I imagine what happens is during their rituals, they spin it and it says, destiny and fate and all those things have a huge part of what goes on in that place. Because I think they all feel like they're destined to be rulers of the world.
According to Nick Fleischer, co-editor-in-chief of the campus tabloid Rumpus, Skull and Bones is so protective of its image that when the magazine tried to run a story about it, their efforts were mysteriously sabotaged.
When we published that issue, a bunch of the issues that we distributed went missing. Shortly after we distributed them. And we found them after a couple days, but it was... we never had any hard evidence, but we sort of had an idea of what had happened to him.
What dark secrets are Skull and Bones hiding? According to Ron Rosenbaum's new book, the Bonesmen practice a number of bizarre rituals, including one known as the sexual confessional.
And it happens every Sunday night, and they all gather, and one by one per week, they share the secrets of their sexual life. It's a kind of sex education thing for the ruling class kids to initiate them into a more sophisticated knowledge of sexuality so they wouldn't be
And by sophisticated, they mean homosexual.
taken advantage of by, say, working class girls or girls from the wrong class or gold diggers or fortune hunters.
Another secret of the Bonesmen is their mysterious fascination with the numbers 322.
The legend of the origins of Skull and Bones is that it was founded by a Greek orator, Demosthenes, in the year 322 BC. So 322 becomes the Skull and Bones secret number. I don't think anyone believes that the Skull and Bones actually started in 322 BC, but mythically they date themselves back to that. So 322 is important to them.
But there's an even more bizarre twist to the Bonesman's secret number.
Right inside the door, that big door to the tomb of Skull and Bones, is a room whose walls are covered with license plates. Recently, an informant, a woman who was taken inside the tomb of Skull and Bones by an initiate who broke his oath, told me what she says is the secret of the license plates, that every Skull and Bones member is told that when he sees a license plate that has the numbers 322 on it, he's supposed to confiscate them. That was her word, confiscate them.
Rosenbaum says his informant revealed an even darker secret: grave robbing.
Every class of Skull and Bones, every group of 15, is given the name of some famous person and told to dig up the skull of that person and bring it to the tomb of Skull and Bones.
Rosenbaum believes that the Bush family may have been involved in one of the most notorious cases of grave robbing.
And by the way, Gog and Magog, you got to go back into the Mystery Babylon to understand who this is, but those are the names given at Skull and Bones to Bush Sr. and Bush Jr., Gog and Magog.
And one of my informants told me that, and this has been reported elsewhere as well, that one of the skulls in a glass aquarium-like case filled with turquoise chips is labeled the skull of Geronimo, the Apache warrior, because as it turns out, Prescott Bush, President George Bush's father, was stationed somewhere in Arizona near the burial ground of Geronimo at a time when the skull may have disappeared.
According to Rosenbaum, members of the Bush family even tried to return the skull.
As I understand it, the Apaches turned it down because they said, "We don't think this is the right skull."
Despite the disturbing rumors, there are many who believe that Skull and Bones is just a harmless college fraternity.
The only reason why Skull and Bones remains interesting is because they guard their secrecy.
But one thing is clear: the power of Skull and Bones extends far beyond the ancient walls of its secret tomb.
I think what makes Skull and Bones significant, not just as some, extra special fraternity or something like that, is that over the years, Skull and Bones people have been secretaries of state, they've been presidents, they've been in the foreign policy establishment, they've been in the cabinet, they've been on the Supreme Court. These are the people who have shaped America's character. And what's interesting is they've had their character shaped inside the tomb of Skull and Bones.
Oops. Okay. Well, nice little primer for the next one. And let's watch this, and then I'll read a piece that I have to read, and then a bunch of other things I have to read. So there's a lot of reading to go on after this. Let me just make sure I'm on the right thing. Okay, I may or may not have to read this one part if it's covered in this video. We'll find out. starting at 59 seconds into the book, the video called Michelle Bachmann Explains Why All Eyes Should Be on the 76th World Health Assembly, in Switzerland. Why did I even read that wrong? That's weird. Okay.
Director General of the World Health Organization earlier today. Now, one of the first items of business today was actually to increase the mandatory fees of member states by 20%. That's just one of the many things they're up to this week. Well, former Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann is in Geneva, and she joins me to discuss what the WHO is up to this week, and in particular, the pandemic accord that the WHO is pursuing that would essentially give them global police powers, threatening our freedom in so many different ways. She served in Congress for 8 years and is now the dean of the Robertson School of Government at Regent University, as well as chair of the board here at the Family Research Council. During her time in Congress, she served on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Dean Bachmann, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Tony, thanks so much. It's great to be with you from Geneva, Switzerland tonight.
So tell us what you're seeing and hearing there on the ground. You've been there through the weekend. You were there for the start of the meeting. What are you hearing?
Well, exactly what we thought was going to happen. All of the documents that we've been reading for over a year that would establish a platform for global governance through the World Health Organization are exactly, without blushing, this is what they intend to do and what they plan to do. They're not going to do it this year. We thought it was going to be done, but they're making sure they perfect it over the next year. So there's a dual track process that they're following. One is through a global pandemic treaty that they're calling.
Man, Geneva's way more blurry than I thought it would be. Do you see the background? It's all bokeh.
An accord. The second is through a package of about 300 amendments to the international health rules. Both lead to the same result. Both lead to the creation of a platform for global governance through healthcare. And it is a web that locks us in the likes of which we've never seen before.
So apply the two elements that we've established so far. A cashless society with social credit score, determining how many credits you have to live and survive, and your footprint being analyzed and your biometrics being analyzed. And if they get other technology in you, your thoughts and your heart rate and every other aspect of your health being analyzed to see whether or not you're still useful to society as they go too. And then apply that to your healthcare and the global governance thing here. Do you see how this is their method for creating the entire, creating the enslavement of mankind? And this is the World Health Organization. We're not just talking about USA, but they want to destroy the Western world first so that every other state in every country, will crumble out of fear because the big one already went down, and without us, without any semblance of order or constitutional republic left, no more example of that in the world, well, then everyone else will just be scared into submission.
The interesting thing to me, Tony, is that there were no members of Congress here. I was actually shocked, because this has been a big issue that a lot of their constituents have rightfully been very concerned about. There wasn't one senator here or his staff or her staff or one House member or staff. There was no American press here. So how would anyone even know what was going on unless they tuned in and they watched for themselves? One thing I was shocked at today, Tony, is the conversation that was being had over COVID was exactly the view that the World Health Organization took at the beginning of COVID. We've learned a lot of things in the last 3 years, haven't we? And the World Health Organization bungled almost everything, whether it was masks or vaccines or lockdowns. But yet they acted like nothing happened. There was no review. They acted like everything was just normal. And they're planning to go ahead with all 300 amendments. As a matter of fact, they gave their strategy today. They're planning to meet in New York City in September They'll go over the progress that they're going to make. In January, they'll give a final completed package of the 300 amendments together with a global pandemic treaty to the World Health Organization and the UN and the World Health to the World Health Organization. And then they'll meet again in Geneva next February. But 1 year from this week, they will take the vote. And so they intend to vote for a platform for global government and to give themselves the power that no one has ever seen before. But I was actually kind of shocked, Tony. Today, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was at the World Health Organization. They were having meetings. I was shocked at the concentration of global power in Geneva. I had no idea how close it all is together and how powerful it is. The World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization, the United Nations, directly across Lake Geneva from the United Nations is the official world headquarters of the World Economic Forum. All of these organizations are together. And
that just means there's a lot of targets in Switzerland that we should probably pay attention to, like the IMF, the BIS, Bank of International Settlements, for the people who don't know what that means, International Monetary Fund of the IMF, anything that the Rothschilds own, the WEF, the World Health Organization, United Nations. These are all targets. Should we want to change the flow of things in the days to come?
And one thing they said today in the meetings is that we want to increase global governance. We want to increase it here in Geneva, and they want Geneva to be the site for the global governance.
Wow, Michelle, there's a lot to unpack there. So let me just jump in with a few more questions. First, clarifying for our viewers and listeners, the World Health Organization has been an advisory body. I mean, member states can take it or leave it, whatever they say. Fortunately, in most cases, they've left it because they're so misguided. But under these new amendments, these amendments that are being pursued under their current policies and the accord, is being called accord so they can avoid having to get it ratified as a treaty, this would move them from an advisory body to one that actually has jurisdiction over every governmental entity.
And you can't have that without enforcement. So that also means they would have military as well, people who can shoot you if you do not comply.
Including those here in the United States.
Well, that's exactly the point, Tony. That's right. All 194 member nations would be under the thumb of the World Health Organization. And what the Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus has to say, whatever he dictates, that's the way that it goes. People need to know what this means. We were all upset with Dr. Fauci when Dr. Fauci would wear one mask and then all of a sudden he'd show up with 4 masks on and tell us we had to do that, or churches had to close down, schools had to close down. Now that level of power and authority would move to the World Health Organization in Geneva, Switzerland. So they'd make the decision for Pasadena, California, or Keokuk, Iowa, or...
Right. It takes away the sovereignty of states within the country and on the local level as well, because these places are all infiltrated and they're just walking lockstep. They're just taking orders. They're already so entrenched with these people that if we the people don't do something about it, it's not going to fix itself.
Raleigh, North Carolina, they would be making the decision. We would have nowhere to go to appeal. I've talked to a lot of members of Congress about this, Tony. I have begged them to get involved. I've talked to members.
You appeal with high velocity lead. That's how you appeal.
Members of the United States Senate. They've all looked at me and said, this will never happen. This will never go through. Members of the Senate will never approve of this treaty. Well, I have news for them. The World Health Organization has no intention of allowing the global pandemic treaty to come back to the Senate to be voted on. Why weren't the senators there today? Why don't they get the current copies? And their copies are all sitting there. They're on the website. Get the copy of the pandemic treaty. Start holding hearings on it. Bring in the Biden administration. Today I heard from...
What's the Biden administration, who promotes people like Kerry, going to do? And what is congressmen going to do when the only reason why they're congressmen in the first place is because they were selected by the CFR?
Secretary Xavier Becerras, the head of our Health and Human Services. And Tony, he said he wants more biosurveillance. In other words, surveillance of our bodies. And then they want to share that data with everyone else in the world. This is highly invasive. They were very clear today. They want very bold language. They intend to have surveillance over every citizen on Earth. And they intend to be in control, and they intend to control us through healthcare. So we need our senators to wake up, hold hearings, pull these documents in, start to review them, because if they're thinking they'll wait until January, that's pretty late, because the next meeting will be in Geneva in February. The final vote will take place in May. So they should have been there this week, Tony. They should have been there this week, but they need to pull this in the Senate. And I would call on Kevin McCarthy, as he is doing this negotiating for raising the debt ceiling. I would put on the table that Joe Biden has to get the United States out of the World Health Organization and pull the funding for the World Health Organization as the price of raising the debt ceiling.
So, Michelle, if I'm not mistaken, as I read through what they're proposing, we're focused on the pandemic because we just, we came through the coronavirus pandemic, but this goes beyond just pandemics. I mean, they can declare any health crisis. I mean, I'm looking at some of Gabriel's comments. Climate. He says climate is a crisis. Yes. We're talking about gender reassignment surgeries. We're talking about abortion. I mean, there's a lot that falls under this umbrella.
Yeah, racism. So they've got this concept they talked about today, Tony, called One Health. And they've got graphics on it, and they show humans, animals, the earth. One Health. So when decisions are made about healthcare, they have to take into account the earth and what the impact would be on climate change. And then they have to take in.
Right. If keeping you alive somehow affects the climate negatively, according to them in their own jaded research, which isn't research at all, well, then maybe you won't get that, even though pharmaceuticals are terrible, medicine that you think you need, or operation that you think you need, or healthcare coverage that you think you need to make yourself healthy and keep you going.
Into account what is the impact on smelt or a rodent. So what it boils down to is humans equal cockroaches equal a clump of dirt. And so here the Director General will be making decisions about healthcare or lockdowns or vaccines or whatever he's going to make decisions about. And we have as much value to them as a cockroach and a lump of dirt. That's why you don't want to give up decision-making authority to someone like the Director General, the WHO. They have a very different agenda at hand, and this is an agenda for global governance. And
it's also the same agenda that has been passed up from the mystery schools throughout history for the last 5,000 years.
Was shocked. I didn't realize until I came to Geneva this week that Julius Caesar actually came to Geneva, Switzerland, and the Roman Empire ended at the Swiss Alps. He wanted to make a name for himself. He wanted to be great. So he came to Geneva, Switzerland. He had a skirmish with some of the Swiss, and he expanded the Roman Empire all the way to the North Sea. So he doubled the size of the Roman Empire. And it looks like what's happening here, Tony, is a revival of the Roman Empire again. They talked about it all day today, how they want to expand global governance and how they want to expand the power and authority here in Geneva, where it's the World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization, the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the International Red Cross, all.
The International Red Cross, also Templar-oriented symbolism there, or you can even say the Knights of Malta cross, but that's Rothschild all day as well.
These international organizations are here. This is a major finance center. We were told this is the second largest center for trading oil in the world. The amount of money that's here is unbelievable. There's black Mercedes everywhere. The Four Seasons Hotel is all full of these people, and the Ritz-Carlton is full, and all the fancy dinners and everything that's going on. These people have big plans for us. And what they want is a global governance system, and it will upend the American form of government forever.
What she should do is rob them while they're still cash in their pockets and are not all in digital currency. She knows where the money's at. She knows where they're staying in the hotels. She should just rob them.
Michelle, that sounds like a few of the pieces from the book of Revelation coming together.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I was here this week. I thought we need to wake up. We need to watch what's going on. Anyone can look at this information, Tony. Anyone can watch these sessions. All you have to do is go to the World Health Organization, World Health Assembly, and just put it into your browser, and you can watch all of these sessions and see what's going on. All the documents are there as well. Every single member of Congress should read these 300 amendments. They're planning to pass them all. That's what the guy in charge of the amendments said today. They're planning to pass them all. They think they're perfect the way they are. And the Global Pandemic Treaty, they think that language is perfect the way it is. People need to read this treaty. It'll make your hair stand up on the back of your neck. At the loss of power and freedom that we will have if this passes, and it'll pass. No one objected.
Right.
That was the other thing, Tony. Not one objection by anyone. It was a me too, I agree party. I was just shocked. There was no free discussion. I was sat in a round table. There's no free round table discussion where people shared ideas. It was all pre-baked, and everyone said, I agree. We got to do this. And it's urgent. And the number one word that they used besides urgent was equity. We have to have equal outcomes for everyone on earth with universal health care. Meaning, they said, we've got to look at all the money we have to spend. We don't need to look at our budgets. And for those countries that are producing health products, they need to produce more health products and give them away to the world. So one thing they didn't do, they didn't focus on any new breakthroughs in medicine. There was nothing about health here. There was nothing about medicine. There's nothing about breakthroughs or cures. Everything was about giving themselves more power and more authority.
Control.
Yes.
It's all about control. There is a bill, H.R. 79. I think Andy Biggs is the author of that bill that would withdraw the U.S. from the WHO. But we're almost out of time, Michelle. But I want to put a fine point on something so people don't think, well, this is just business as usual. We've had the United Nations before. This is just one of their agencies. This gives the WHO more power than the United Nations has ever thought about having.
That's right. The United Nations has loved to have this power. And after the beta test of COVID in the last 3 years, they had a taste, a delicious taste of what power felt like.
Yeah.
And so now they're going to go for the gold and grab the whole enchilada. They want the full fount of power so that no Tony Fauci can never make decisions again. Now they want all the decisions made out of Geneva.
Michelle, thanks so much for taking time to join us. We're out of time.
Okay, so if you have been following my show at all, or Scott Shara's, or anyone else's, or if you've just been watching what's been going on in the world lately, then you understand that having ultimately the people that are in the very front of this thing being your doctors in hospitals, that this is just a death camp machine generating more dead bodies. And they have death panels all through Obama. Obamacare created this stuff. We're talking about some really dangerous things here. So I hope everybody understands the gravity of what is happening, and that it is happening, and that it's not something that, oh, COVID's over, everybody relax. Smoke them if you got them. Let's have a beer. Kick back. Yeah. What, you can drink Bud Light? Anyway, moving on to the next one. Let's add this back. Is it already on there? It's already on there. All right, good enough. Oh, my dog's barking. That means the kids are home. Okay, I just found this interesting where it says, the World Government Summit strives to build a community of change agents. They just straight up call themselves change agents, such as partners who inspire and empower leaders of tomorrow through impactful events. Yeah, okay. agenda articles. Now, if you look at the WF Forum, World Economic Forum.org, Agenda Global Governance. Why global leaders should advocate for a re-globalized world. I don't care about your cookies. Reject your cookies. Why does the world need a global treaty on plastic pollution? They don't. You guys are the corporations that create all the plastic, and then you act like it's someone else's problem that it's there. Shut up. Anybody watching this create plastic? Do you guys create plastic containers? Oh, okay. That's what I thought. Do you think your lawnmower is destroying the world, or your weed whacker, or your car? Yeah, I'm sure that's what's happening. What would a Marshall Plan for Ukraine look like? Well, first of all, the Marshall Plan was a horrific thing. If you want to look at history, we can do that sometime. But let's look at this now. I guess I'll just read this part, and then we'll get into... So worldgovernmentsummit.org is this other one. One for all and all for health. All for bullshit, but you'll see everything that's happening that they were talking about. This is all right here. You can view it at your leisure. All right, worldgovernmentsummit.org. Just wanted to show you guys where the stuff is. I'm not going to really use it too much for anything, but you can scroll through here and see what's going on. Here's why the world must collaborate on tech governance. Everything's about governance. Control. Yep, that's the Geneva Switzerland thing. It sets 3 targets to ensure that by 2013, 1 billion more people benefit from universal health coverage, which means control over them, because once you take a handout, you are a slave. You are now at the mercy to do the bidding of whomever is your benefactor. That's just how the world has always worked. That's just the natural law, basically. All right, moving on. This is WHA 76, this on climate change, environment, and health. I don't know why this says this will be, it's already passed, but they haven't updated the site. This is World Health Assembly site, Climate and Climate Alliance. Climateandhealthalliance.org, if you guys want to look at that. But she basically covered everything, so I don't... She did me a favor by not having me make me read all that. And what she just covered also talks about all this here, but if you're looking for this, it's climateandhealthalliance.org, WP content uploads 2023, 5 April 2023, and it's called Resolution on Climate Change and Health. But if it's just right on the first site. If you click it, you'll be able to find this this document. It's only 11 pages. A lot of it's they have big footnotes, so you're not really reading full 11 pages. It's something worth looking at. It's mostly what she said, but it's in their words, so you get to see the snideness in their verbiage too, which is always helpful to make you hate them more. Okay, where are we at? Where was I at next? I did that. What was I supposed to do? Oh, okay, so I'm reading from the book now. Let's do that. I've got children at the house. I don't think all of them are mine. That sounded weird, but no, there's a birthday party next door. And my daughter was at the neighbor's party, but I think she didn't come home alone. I think there's more people here. Okay, moving on to Rex 84. Let's talk about this. It's only 2 paragraphs, and then I'll get into some more stuff on Mr. Kerry. Under the auspices of Jim Carter's nightmarish creation, FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, the Reagan administration devised a diabolical plan called Readiness Exercise 1984, or Rex 84, using a problem solely created and enabled by the same corrupt authorities, illegal immigration, as a pretext. Under Rex 84, an undisclosed number of concentration camps were set up throughout the United States. This goes right back to those converted Walmart and Targets that we saw in 2014 to 2016. The ostensible purpose was to round up illegal aliens and detain them, steal their children. That's not what it says here. In these FEMA-run camps, the existence of the Rex 84 plan was first revealed during the 1987 Iran-Contra hearings and subsequently reported on in July 5th, 1987, Miami Herald. The newspaper acknowledged that the plan permitted FEMA to declare martial law with the mere signature of the president. Rex 84 also allowed the conversion of numerous military bases into prisons. Do you guys live next to a military base like me? Yeah, awesome. that birthday party that my daughter was just at. The father is an officer. He's a pilot, jet pilot. He's like number 10 on the NASA list, so they can go into fake space and CGI space together. Rex 84 was co-written by Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North during his 1987 Iran-Contra testimony. North was asked by Representative Jack Brooks of Texas about his work on plans for the continuity of government in the event of a major disaster. As North's attorney visibly winced at this veiled reference to Rex 84, the committee chairman, Senator Daniel Inouye of Hawaii, interceded with, "I believe that question touches upon a highly sensitive and classified area, so may I request that you not touch upon that?" Brooks tried again, declaring that he'd heard such a plan existed that would suspend the American Constitution. It's already been suspended. It's been suspended since before the Civil War was over. In the event of a declared emergency, Inouye again requested the matter not be broached and promised that if need be, the subject could be explored in an executive session, means closed. On a 2010 episode of the controversial television show Conspiracies Theory with Jesse Ventura, the ex-Minnesota governor touched on this delicate issue. Ventura examined the proliferation of so-called fusion centers all over the country. These bizarre law enforcement centers serve an unclear purpose. In one memorable scene, Ventura's cameras pan to a swing set in the playground outside one such center. Exactly what kind of criminals are the authorities anticipating at these centers? They're stealing children, killing the parents. That's what they're intending to do. Okay, moving on. Gotta have some nice rape victims, fresh ones. Endless supply, kind of like what they did with the other reset that happened after the World's Fairs. For years, independent researchers had been claiming, this is POW MIA cover-up. For years, independent researchers had been claiming that there was solid evidence that the American government had left POWs and MIAs behind in Vietnam. In November 1991, the U.S. Senate finally decided to look into the matter. They decided to do a Warren Commission on it, basically. Pretend to look for something, say there's nothing, we've found nothing, and to close the books. Earlier that year in June, Colonel Millard A. Peck, one of the Army's most highly decorated heroes of Vietnam War, had tacked a 5-page resignation letter to his office door, vacating his position as the DIA's top POW MIA officer. Peck blasted not only government officials in his dramatic gesture, but also Ann Mills Griffiths, the executive director of the National League of Families, a group, according to Peck, that occupies an interesting and questionable position in the whole cover-up process. Peck charged that Mills Griffiths is adamantly opposed to any initiatives to actually get to the heart of the problem, and more importantly, interferes in or actively sabotages POW MIA analyses or investigations. She insists on rewriting or editing all significant documents produced by the office. This is then touted as the DIA position. She apparently has access to top secret code word message traffic for which she is supposedly not cleared. She was brought from the outside into the center of the imbroglio, and then, cloaked in a mantle of sanctimony, routinely impedes real progress and insidiously muddles up the issue. One wonders who she really is and where she came from. She's a spook. Following Peck's resignation, Mills Griffiths appeared on CNN to deny his allegations. CNN then interviewed another MIA relative, Judy Tabor, in California, who backed up Mills Griffiths. Of course. A severe conflict of interest that went undisclosed to the national audience. This is CIANN we're talking about, Communist News Network. A severe conflict of interest that went undisclosed to the national audience was the fact that Tabor and Mills Griffiths were sisters. Oh, yeah, that's something there. A furious Dolores Alfond heard of the National Alliance of Families, called CNN to find out if they'd been duped or were merely being predictably biased. A CNN official told her he would take care of it, whatever that meant. Peck wrote further in his letter of resignation, I feel very strongly that this issue is being manipulated and controlled at a higher level, not with the goal of resolving it, but more to obfuscate the question of live prisoners and give the illusion of progress through hyperactivity. Busy doing nothing, right? Busy work. From my and something that you can fund as well, so they can funnel money into it. From my vantage point, I observed that the principal players were interested primarily in conducting a damage limitation exercise and appeared to knowingly and deliberately generate an endless succession of manufactured crises and busy work. I just said busy work. The mindset to debunk live sighting reports is alive and well. It is held at all levels and continues to pervade the POW MIA office. Practically all analysis is directed to finding fault with the source. Isn't that nice? And that's how they always roll. You know, you go in and tell somebody something, now you're the one that's under investigation. From what I witnessed, it appears that they treat you like the criminal when you report on something that's off, right? Or you tell them something that you think is going to be helpful, then you become the one investigated. This is how these scumbags work. Practically all levels of let's see, where did I read? Practically all analysis is directed at finding fault in the source. From what I witnessed, it appears that any soldier left in Vietnam, even inadvertently, was in fact abandoned years ago. And that's from the Spotlight. That's why I said he does reference the Spotlight an awful lot. Anyone who watched the televised hearings before the House Committee or on POWs and MIAs a year after Peck's bitter resignation could not help but come away with the feeling that committee chairman Senator John Kerry, member Senator John McCain, and others were indeed concentrating their efforts on debunking and finding fault with the source. The Spotlight obtained White House documents that indicated the League of Families was actually set up by President Nixon to counter real criticism of the abandonment of POWs and MIAs. Like I said before, if you know there's going to be opposition, because people can look and have an opposing view, then you create somebody who's going to steer that narrative about the opposition, called controlled opposition, negate any real teeth, any real desire to, counteract what's being told to us, and it's a whitewash. It's basically we're controlling the rebuttal by creating a false narrative, a false discussion, a false conversation. It's like, hey, here's your approved script. Follow it so that we don't have to worry about other people talking about something else who are opposing this, because we're going to put all the cameras on you and forget about everybody else's voice. All right. In light of this, it was certainly understandable why some would suspect that Mills Griffiths was a perfect figurehead to deflect investigations and suppress the truth. A memorandum initiated by White House Chief of Staff H.R. Haldeman, written by one of his aides and sent to Richard Nixon, concerned an April 14th, 1971 meeting between Nixon and the Republican National Committee Chairman Robert Dole. Bob Dole. Did you ever see Norm Macdonald do the Bob Dole impression, which was awful? He's like, Bob Dole says. He talks about himself in third person. The memo states, there was also some discussion of the prisoner of war problem, and the chairman made the point that this is a tinderbox that it is about to explode, as there is a real danger of great numbers of POW wives reversing their support of the president. He suggested, therefore, a fairly major move for cosmetic purposes, optics is what we call it these days, and the president asked that this possibility be explored. The memo went on to say, according to the Al Haig, General Alexander Haig, at the time, aide to National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger, and later to become Secretary of State under President Ronald Reagan, the next 8 weeks are critical, and the efforts for the ad hoc coordinating group on POW MIA matters will be devoted to keeping the families on the reservation in order to buy this time. Russian President Boris Yeltsin wrote a letter to the U.S. Senate Select Committee on POW MIA Affairs in 1992, in which he flatly stated that the Soviets had held U.S. prisoners of war dating back to World War II. He added that he probably said it between one of his third and fourth, bottles of vodka that day. So yeah, we got him. He added that some could very well still be languishing in prisons and or psychiatric hospitals. Oh, God. Imagine the amount of drugs they've pumped into this person's body already. And torture and experimentation in the psychiatric hospital. That's why the World Health Organization also thinks that patriotism and nationalism and religiosity is a mental disorder. Yeah. Individuality is also a mental disorder and also very counterproductive if you're trying to think globally instead of, about yourself, you selfish person who thinks only of your family. Throughout the former Soviet republics, okay. White House and Pentagon officials, of course, had consistently denied any Americans were held in Soviet... I just lost my place. My eyes just went wacky. Yeah, okay, in Soviet captivity. So the White House says, and Pentagon officials, of course, had consistently denied any Americans were held in Soviet captivity. They're telling you, who aren't there, who aren't in Russia, yeah, no, there's none there. The people, the guy, the leader of the country is like, yeah, no, they're here. Oh, no, they're not. Huh? Okay, moving on. Yeltsin then reiterated his opinions to newsmen aboard an aircraft en route to Washington for his summit with President Bush. He added in his comments on board the plane that American POWs from the Vietnam War were interrogated by Soviet intelligence officials and that they too could still be alive somewhere within the vast territories that comprised the shattered Soviet Empire. Living it up at the Hotel La Bianca. Such a lovely place. The Senate Select Committee on POWs and MIAs wasn't interested in this or any other real information. Chairman Senator John Kerry, Democrat in Massachusetts, as we learned, clashed bitterly with Senator Robert Smith, not from the band. It's not the same Robert Smith. It's not the Cure, I promise. He's a Republican out of New Hampshire, who seemed genuinely interested in ascertaining the truth about the issue they were tasked to investigate. 2 staff members fired by Kerry charged afterward that the committee suppressed documents showing a clear pattern of betrayal and abandonment of POWs by the U.S. government. Who did that? Who fired them? John Kerry. Right. This is the history of offenses and treason by this man that I just wanted to bring up to you. Charged afterward a committee betrayal, abandonment of suppressed documents showing the clear pattern of betrayal and abandonment of POWs in the U.S. Of POWs by the U.S. government going back to World War II. The 2 were Deputy Staff Director Dino Carluccio, a former fellow Italian, and former Representative William Billy Hendren. I left the Select Committee staff because Senator Kerry fired me. That's a good reason to leave. You don't have a job. Hendon explained at a press conference on the lawn of the Capitol. Hendon called for a special prosecutor to investigate the cover-up by the Defense Intelligence Agency and Congress, calling the suppression of information despicable treason, which it was. Hendon also alleged that documents had been shredded. A key investigator for the Senate committee, John F. McCreary, accused Chairman Kerry and the panel staff of violating federal laws by ordering the destruction of the original copy of a report that indicated that POWs and MIAs were still alive in Southeast Asia as recently as 1989. The accusation was made in a memo to the committee's vice chairman, Senator Robert Smith, dated May 3rd, 1992. The memo stated, in part, on April 9th, 1992, Senator McCain produced a copy of the intelligence briefing text with whose contents he strongly disagreed. He charged that the briefing text had already been leaked to a POW-MIA activist, but was reassured by Kerry that such was not the case. He replied that he was certain it would be leaked. Truth. They're afraid of truth coming out. All right. Whereupon the chairman reassured Senator McCain there would be no leaks because all copies would be gathered and destroyed, and he gave orders to that effect. Following the briefing on April, that's why you can't give evidence to criminals who are pretending to be officials. You have to be your own justice. The people have to be their own justice. And be fair, and don't be a bullshitter, and don't just go after your enemies and political enemies. But you can't give, it's like telling the Smithsonian that you found dinosaur bones and expecting them not to disappear. Stop doing that. I don't mean giant bones. Did I say dinosaur? I think I said giants. Following the briefing on April 3rd, the staff director, Miss Frances Zwenig, restated that to the intelligence investigators the order to destroy the intelligence briefing text and took measures to ensure execution of the destruction order. During one telephone conversation with the undersigned McCreary, she stated that she was acting under orders, just following orders. The undersigned was also instructed to delete all computer files. In a meeting on April 15th, 1992, the staff's chief counsel, J. William Kodinha, minimized the significance of the documents and their destruction. He admonished the investigators for making a mountain out of a molehill. When investigators repeated their concern that the order to destroy the documents might lead to criminal charges, Mr. Kodina replied, "Who's the injured party? All those people that you left to die, that's who the injured party is, you son of a bitch. The Constitution is the injured party because this is treason." He was told the 2,494 families of the unaccounted for U.S. servicemen, among others. Mr. Cardina then said, "Who's going to tell them? It's classified." What a piece of shit. Internal Defense Department memos obtained not only by the Spotlight, but mainstream press outlets such as the Washington Times revealed that Kerry, along with his loyal staff director Francis Zwenig, had even coached Defense Department witnesses. The documents reveal this unequivocally. Sorry, I put an extra b in it. Kerry also, during the ballyhooed trip to Hanoi to show how cooperative the Vietnamese were now, actually apologized to communist leaders for inspecting the Vietnamese military compound, and he referred to the search as silly. One of Kerry's cohorts, Senator Thomas Daschle, the Democrat out of South Dakota, answered reporter Mark Mooney of the New York Post, who accompanied the delegation, and asked if the purpose of the trip was to convince remaining skeptics in America to close the book on the emotional issue of MIAs by saying, "You got it. Absolutely. We're here to optics. Just like because reasons? Yeah, for optics." A fake thing, a fake walkthrough. The member of the Senate committee who most rabidly disavowed any notions of a cover-up or conspiracy on the part of the government, however, was Senator John McCain, Republican, right, of Arizona. This was seemingly bizarre in that McCain's political career had been primarily built upon his own experiences as a Vietnam prisoner of war. Yeah, we don't know how much of that is true, but let's move on. McCain was how much of his captivity was true. I think he was being fed prostitutes for information, and it was all a setup because that's who they were going to funnel the information to, and it was always going to happen. They just picked him to do it. So he was shot down. He was already there, whatever. He also, caused the death of, 100 and something sailors because he was dicking around and caused a fire on deck. People talk about that at all? So people hated him. And he was connected to a top dog. So his daddy wasn't gonna let anything bad happen to him. So let's get, since he can't be on a boat without killing his own crew. Let's have him get shot down, and then they can do stuff to him there. One would logically have expected him to be a dogged crusader for the truth about this issue and a strong supporter of all those individuals and groups who were working so hard to expose high-level treachery. You would think that unless he was Skull and Bones. and just there to do whatever he was told to do. However, despite official documents, radio intercepts, witness depositions, satellite photos, electronic messages using individual code numbers belonging to missing airmen, rescue missions aborted by Washington, and admissions from high government officials that men were left behind, McCain was not convinced there was any reason to delve into the subject. Hold on. I'm talking a lot. Made an awful lot of noise, didn't it? McCain viciously attacked those like former POW Eugene Red McDaniel. He attacking POWs in a congressional hearing, who were actively seeking answers as frauds. He called them frauds who were preying on the grieving families. That's what he's doing. McCain had even bitterly opposed the so-called Truth Bill introduced in 1990, which called simply for openness and disclosure of all records and information, including live sightings pertaining to soldiers missing since World War II. They didn't care. It's not even so much, listen to this. They were so adamant about putting a lid on it, they didn't even want independent people with their own funding to go save these people. Isn't that sick? No, it's over. It's closed. That's all it is. It wouldn't have anything to do, or needed to have anything to do with the government or its own investigation into this. Other independent people could have taken that information and gone somewhere with it and helped people if they had the proper funding and the connections. And there's a lot of people out there who are ex-military that do. It was certainly a reasonable and non-controversial measure, but McCain preempted this by introducing his own countermeasure, which permitted the Pentagon to basically control what was released. One of the committee's first witnesses was Tracy Ussery. Sounds too much like usury. Former chief of investigator for the Senate and Foreign Relations Committee. Ussery testified that Soviets had interrogated U.S. POWs in Vietnam. This, of course, would be verified by Boris Yeltsin's comments the following year. Senator McCain became incensed at Ussery's allegations, interrupting him repeatedly and shouting declaringly, none of the returned U.S. prisoners of war released by Vietnam were ever interrogated by the Soviets. Why wouldn't they be? They were both communists. That's why Vietnam went communist. That makes perfect sense. Colonel Bu Tin, former North Vietnamese army officer, testified after Ussery and informed the committee that his position in the Communist Party had permitted him access to the most top-secret information in the Politburo. He reported that not only was Ussery correct about the Soviets questioning American POWs, but that they'd been badly mistreated as well. As a result of these embarrassing disclosures, Ussery and all other members of the minority staff were fired. That's how you handle the situation. Don't shut up. Don't say what we want to say. You're fired. Oh, man. Hold on. I got a tickle. It's like a scratch in the back of my throat. In subsequent hearings, McCain would defeat Dolores Alfond. I'm sorry. Again, my words is not what I'm seeing things that aren't there. In subsequent hearings, McCain would treat Dolores Alfond, head of the National Alliance of Families, so shamefully that, in her words, I mean, he was yelling and screaming at me and had me in tears. The only committee member who initially attended Miss Alfond's appearance was Vice Chairman Robert Smith. However, Senator McCain was so angered by her testimony that he burst in at one point and loudly accused her of making allegations that were patently and totally false. He shook his fist at her and pointed his index finger in the confrontational manner, and he chastised her for insulting President Bush's emissary to Vietnam. He charged that she was insinuating there was some conspiracy without proof and some cover-up. McCain became so out of control that he eventually stalked out of the room, to shouting boos from those in the audience. Senator Robert Smith would later say, many documents were held back for no reason. Some in the POW MIA community even believe McCain's war record was severely tainted. Got it? Following its ridiculous investigation, the Senate Select Committee was further aided in covering up the massive governmental record of misdeeds in the area in this area by American officials. So I guess if you had disclosure to some documents, you'd have disclosure to all documents, and then you'd find out that McCain's whole story was a goddamn fraud. Maybe that's what it was. He was dropped off to do what he did over there, you know? General Thomas Needham, Navy Commander Dale Hayes, and an unidentified CIA employee virtually took... Aren't most CIA employees unidentified? They don't wear FBI or CIA on their backs like the FBI do, you know, or wear the giant words that say undercover on the back of their shirt. CIA employee virtually took over the U.S. Embassy in Bangkok, Thailand, and destroyed POW MIA case files that filled from 20-inch to 30 feet. What? Of wall? Oh, it's from 20 to 30 feet of wall cabinets. That was quotations I was reading as in inches. 20 to 30 feet of wall cabinets during the period of March 25th to March 29th, 1993. The documents were invaluable and had been declassified under executive order by President Bush, but predictably enough, the Senate Select Committee failed to pursue them. Once they were shredded by the trio of heroic patriots, there was no chance of the public seeing them. He should have put heroic patriots in quotation marks. I put that in quotation marks, but that's not... He didn't. The hell, Donald? Jesus Christ. After the committee had finished its honorable work, the revelations kept flying. In April 13th, 1993, edition of the establishment flagship, the New York Times, the findings of researcher Stephen J. Morris of the Harvard Center of International Affairs and the Russian Research Center at Harvard were published. The most explosive of all the documents of the former GRU, the chief intelligence director of the Soviet Red Army, unearthed by Morris, was a report by General Tran Van Quang, Deputy Chief of Staff of the North Vietnamese Army during the war. The report was dated September 12, 1972, and revealed that 1,205 American prisoners of war were being held by the North Vietnamese. At one point, the document Quang states, in reference to these 1,205 servicemen, the government of the USA knows this well. President George Bush, during a 1992 speech before the annual convention of the National League of POW and MIA Families, had a run-in with some vocal protesters. Bush had apparently only agreed to speak before the group because of the organization's leader, Ann Mills Griffiths, had been charged by Millard Peck and others with participating in covering up any real efforts to find out the truth about missing servicemen, and he thus was expecting a receptive audience. The president became ruffled when the demonstrators, many of them elderly women, began chanting "No more lies." Flustered, he finally told them to sit down and shut up. That's how he handled it. That's how your president talks. Flustered, he finally told them to sit down and shut up. Mills Griffiths, perfectly in character, defended the president and Bush's campaign director, and the talentless future television talking head Mary Madeline commented, "I did not think Bush's response to those rude people there was inappropriate." Interestingly enough, the women considered to be the ringleader of the protesters, Gloria Bristow of Arlington, Texas, who later claimed she was not the first to stand up during the speech and chant "Tell the truth, no more lies," was just coincidentally, of course, fired from her job only a few days after returning home from the convention. President Bush solemnly declared in October 23rd, 1992, Rose Garden ceremony, today, finally, I'm convinced that we can begin writing the last chapter in the Vietnam War. John McCain was standing at his side. McCain would continue to clash with POW MIA activist Jeanette Jenkins of Atwater, Ohio, claimed to be the total silence of the national establishment press, that the senator shoved her in the hallway outside of his office on June 20th, 1990s. He's kind of violent, this guy. Got a couple dings in his head, I think. Jenkins was among a group of about 15 family members and activists who attempted to hand-deliver letters protesting McCain's bill to amend the Missing Personnel Act. Jenkins was pushing the wheelchair of her aged aunt, Jane Duke Gaylor of Cent, Ohio, whose son, Charles R. Duke, was a civilian MIA missing since 1970 in South Vietnam. Gaylor was a longtime POW MIA activist confined by health problems to a wheelchair. In 1995, she had somehow avoided the headlines when she chained herself to the White House fence in the protest of President Clinton's handling of the POW MIA issue. Jenkins filed a complaint with the Senate Ethics Committee wherein she declared, "We were attempting to hand-deliver letters to Senator McCain requesting him to please drop his amendment to the Missing Personnel Act." McCain came out of his office with a young woman, apparently his aide Nancy Ives, and began walking toward our group. As he approached us, Carolyn Herdikla, there's no it's HRDL. There's 4 consonants in a row. So I'm just going to go with Herdikla. Herdlicka. Okay. The wife of confirmed POW asked the senator, "May we speak with you?" Then John Parcells, a former POW who was returned by the communists, asked him if he would take the letters. That was when his face changed and he became very angry. He then burst through the group, shoving me with unreasonable force in a hostile manner. I was standing next to my aunt, who was in a wheelchair. Senator McCain did not give me a chance to get out of his way. His look was angry and hostile, and he shoved me without cause. Gaylor's letter to the Ethics Committee echoed her niece's story. Senator McCain shoved my niece hard in a very hostile manner, not caring what harm it could have caused her. Herdlicka of Conway Springs, Kansas, a well-known and respected activist, supported the other's testimony. McCain stated he would not accept the letters and knew nothing of the Missing Personnel Act. He then shoved his way through the group, pushing one of the ladies into the wall, and hurried down the hall away from us. So here we had U.S. Senator charged by a number of witnesses, one of them the aged wheelchair-bound mother of a Vietnam MIA civilian, with an unprovoked physical attack upon a woman in the U.S. Senate hallway. And yet the mainstream media was not interested in the story. Herdlicka's attorney, yada, yada, yada. We get the point. And we get the point. And we get the point. The rest is all about McCain. And there's only that much left of the chapter. Then it goes into Bush's body count. So there you have it. That's a little bit of the story of how Kerry was involved in shutting the books on POWs and MIA. In the meantime, he's also doing this other shit with the climate crap. So now I have to go into Instagram and have to read a couple things from his background that somebody sent me. Mr. Nicodemus. Let me see, where's my messages? Where are we at? Huh. A little further up. Wait. Something's not right. There should be right between these things, isn't it? Huh? Yeah, I guess I have to go up further. Or is it neither one? Son of a bitch. That would suck. Huh. Why isn't it on that one? Alright, I'll have to read from my phone then. I don't know where it is. Unless it's in this one. No, it's not. The fuck? This one is Nicodemus, right? It should be. Huh. Why are the pages not there? Nah. Alright, it's okay. I have it in here. Things are liars. Okay. Wow, that's really small writing. Can I make it bigger? A little bit. Alright, let's read a little bit about early life and education. 1943 to 1966. This is John Forbes Kerry, was born on December 11th, 1943 at Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center in Aurora, Colorado. He is the second of 4 children born to Richard John Kerry, Dick Kerry, a U.S. diplomat and lawyer, and Rosemary Forbes, a nurse and social activist. His father was raised Catholic. John's paternal grandparents were Austro-Hungarian Jewish immigrants who converted to Catholicism and his mother was Episcopalian. He was raised with an elder sister, Margaret, a younger sister, Diana, and a younger brother, Cameron. The children were raised in their father's Catholic faith, and John served as an altar boy. Oh, I'm sure he served quite a lot as an altar boy, and those skills would do him well when he was a Skull and Bones member, I'm sure too. Kerry was originally considered a military brat until his father was discharged from the Army Air Corps. Kerry lived in Groton, Massachusetts his first year, and whoops, there's a hair on it, cat hair, and Millis, Massachusetts afterwards before moving to the Georgetown neighborhood of Washington, D.C. at age 7 when his father took a spot in the Department of the Navy's official Office of General Counsel and soon became a diplomat in the State Department's Bureau of United Nations Affairs. Following his daddy's footsteps. As members of the Forbes and Dudley Winthrop families, his maternal extended family enjoyed great wealth. Yeah. And these are the people who want to take everything from you and starve you to death because they want it all. It's all about the power and control. Kerry's parents themselves were upper middle class and wealthy, and a wealthy great aunt paid for him to attend the elite boarding school, such as, and then I guess it cuts off there. Ancestry. Kerry's paternal grandparents, shoe businessman Frederick A. Kerry and musician Ida Lowe, were immigrants from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Fred, his wife, and his brother converted from Judaism to Catholicism in 1901 and changed their names from Cohn, K-O-H-N, to Kerry. Sounds a lot more Irish that way, doesn't it? Ida was of remote ancestry. Let's see, wait, Ida? Yeah, Ida was of remote ancestry of Rabbi Sinai Lowe of Worms, brother of Judah Lowe ben Bezalel, I guess. Fred and Ida Kerry immigrated to the United States in 1905, living at first in Chicago and eventually moving to Brookline, Massachusetts by 1915. According to the New York Times, brother and sister of John Kerry's paternal grandmother, Otto and Jenny Lowe, died in concentration camps. Kerry's Jewish ancestry was publicly revealed. You know, a lot of those people that are in concentration camps were straight up communist Reds, and that's why they're there in the first place. Kerry's Jewish ancestry was publicly revealed during his, that would explain the conversion and then the fleeing. Just saying. Kerry's Jewish ancestry was publicly revealed during his 2004 presidential campaign. He has stated that he was unaware of it until a reporter informed him of it in 2003. Kerry's maternal ancestors were of Scottish and English descent, and his maternal grandparents were James Grant Forbes II of the Forbes family and Margaret Tyndall Winthrop of the Dudley Winthrop family. Margaret's paternal grandfather, Robert Charles Winthrop, served as the 22nd Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. Robert's father was Governor Thomas Lyndall Winthrop. Thomas's father, John Still Winthrop, was a great-great-grandson of Massachusetts Bay Colony Governor John Winthrop and great-grandson of Governor Thomas Dudley. Through his mother, Kerry is a first cousin once removed from French politician Brice Lalonde. I think that's it. That's all I have, those two. And that's the climate czar John Kerry calls for a reduction in food production to stop global warming. Kill you now so we don't have to kill you later. Makes perfect sense to me, right? We want to kill you now so we don't have to kill you later. Brilliant. All right. Let me just double check one time and make sure I didn't skip over anything I wanted to talk about. We can go back into the why climate change is bullshit, because I think more people need to listen to that and understand that it is bullshit. Don't forget about this, worldeconomicforum.org. No, it's WEF Forum. WEF Forum. It's like the We Forum, okay? WeForum.org. You gotta check this crap out. Like, there's so much like insanity and nonsense here. Digital safety risk assessment in action, a framework and bank case studies. Yeah. what's a debt ceiling anyway? And why does the U.S. have one? Okay, stupid people, let's tell you what we want you to think and believe about the world. World Government Summit. Anything that has like inclusion, equity, and all this other crap in it, these are all global government terms. Just like economy means human energy. And when Trump was constantly talking about the greatest, strongest economy, he was talking about the greatest stronghold on human energy, meaning his influence on controlling people's actions and getting them to believe in him. I think we're done with that one. That's it. I think we got it. How long have I been on? Long enough? Is it 6:37? Does anybody want to open for calls? You won't do it anyway. Why even bother? Why even say it? 619-354-8879. Come on. 619-354-8879. We talked about news this time, so I might actually, while you're pretending that you're going to call and you're not really, I'll start with number 3 here. Hold on, let me put it back up so you can see it. When I see you smile. The rate of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has been directly credited to the human species and greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases, like what? Like when something melts and there's a bunch of decaying vegetation that causes an exposed gas to emanate. Don't you think that God would have, considered that being a possibility and that the world he created wouldn't fall apart if that happened? Especially since it's in a firmament, so not too much can escape. Causing the current warming trend. Everything has a half-life to it, depending on what you're talking about. So things break down. If it's bad for a little bit, it's not bad forever. So everybody shut the hell up. The carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere has fluctuated due to various reasons over time. Since the Industrial Revolution, the CO2 levels in the atmosphere have increased on average by roughly 120 parts per million. This is all bullshit too. They don't have any figures for when they weren't doing any kind of measuring. So how can they say it increased anything? Shut up! Shut up! Most of this is linked to the human cause, and during the current century, the increase is approximately 0.55% per year. See also various advantages of wind energy. Though there is absolutely no proof that CO2 is the main driver of global warming, as ancient ice core measurements have proven that CO2 levels in the past have often changed after a temperature drop or increase, solid evidence exists that shows that these temperatures fluctuate naturally through solar radiation and other galactic and local influences. The warming of the surface levels of the planet result in more CO2 being released into the atmosphere, which is good for plants and a more humid climate, which means a greener world. Less desert, more enriched soil, all the things that they don't want because they're terraforming it, so that they have there's a big giant lizard terrarium that they're going to build here over our dead skulls. The ratio of man-made CO2 to natural CO2 on Earth is about, you don't even have any fucking idea what it is. Shut up. That means man's portion is about 2 drops. None of the science that they even do to test anything is actually real, so why the hell are they fucking giving us figures? Shut up! Shut up! Okay, recent findings show that Mount Katla, buried under a glacier in Iceland, emits up to 24,000 tons of CO2 per day. It's possible that many more other subglacial volcanoes worldwide are dumping much more CO2 into the atmosphere. So why don't you put a giant cork in that if you're scared and tell everybody else to keep driving? Shut up. Shut up! There are 40,000 miles of volcanically active mid-ocean ridges, of which only a tiny fraction has been mapped. That's a real big thermal and CO2 output area we know little about. Right, and the world hasn't ended yet, and it's been happening before we've been paying attention to it. So shut up! God damn it! The poles are warming, and ice caps are melting, apparently. No, it's not. Actually, if you look at one spot where it's thinning and melting, you could look over to the other side and be like, oh, look, it's increasing in thickness. Oh, is that a balance? It doesn't even freaking matter. The oceans will raise. How so? How so? If it's floating in water, tell me this. Have you ever had a glass of ice? Have you ever had hold on. I got to get serious with you now. Have you ever had a glass of ice, like a glass of ice water before? Please tell me you have, so I don't have to like question your sanity. You've had a glass of ice water before, right? Okay. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever like looked at this? When the ice is floating in the water, which is what glaciers do. That's why they call them glaciers, right? Okay. They're floating in the water, and you see the level of the water at that point. Now, when things freeze, do they shrink or expand? So when they melt, would it raise the level of the water, or would it make it a little bit less? So shut up! Shut up! Oh my god! Ah! Defies any kind of common sense whatsoever goddamn ever! Shut up! Okay. Computer models are being used to calculate the future impacts of CO2. Right. In silico. We know how well that works, you fucking idiots. Make fake fucking models of viruses too while you're at it, cocksmokers. The melting of natural glaciers provides global warming. Oh, I'm sorry. The melting of natural glaciers proves global warming. Yeah, if you're looking at this part that's melting and not the part that's getting thicker and getting colder. Shut up again. CO2 is a toxin. No, it's not. It's plant food. Fuck off. All right, so we went through all those. I think I'm satisfied now. No, nobody's called because you're all a bunch of pussies. Just kidding. Or am I? You'd be able to judge that. If that offended you, then it's because it's truth. If it didn't offend you, then you know I'm not talking to you about you. So there you go. And for the people out there, the person out there, because apparently I do my show for one person and one person only, according to them, my music selections are awful. And if I want anybody to take me seriously, I better not play that angry music. Don't musicians like vent? Isn't that their therapy, like to express themselves at somewhere in the world, and they do it through their art? Fuck off. If you don't like what I'm playing, don't listen, don't watch. Go somewhere else. Definitely don't criticize me and tell me how to change my show, because to you. All right, anybody. Bye. Love you. I was only kidding about the other stuff, but not really. I wasn't kidding at all. Description. Oh, you know what? Let's do one thing. Let's do one more thing. When you look at the description, and you see the thing that says Dr. Monzo, and you see Ballbusters 15 is the coupon code, that's for 15% off the fulvic acid, 15% off the DNA test kits, which, by the way, you're going to get to see my results on what he scanned me for, and then we'll discuss that even more. That'll be a very interesting topic, and we're probably going to get some information as to what he and Dr. Artis discovered from all the vaccine samples from all types of vaccines when he went to see Dr. Monzo. That's freaking exciting, isn't it? Not sure when it'll happen because he's saving like people right now, and that's a little bit more important than going on someone's show if you're saving somebody from being ill. So he's doing a lot of that. He wants to he wants to train more practitioners, and I want to be trained as a practitioner, and that's one of my goals here. I made it. I'm a certified personal trainer, so so now I'm going for being a practitioner of the off-deaf body. Hold on. Come on. Ah. What the hell? All right. Did I screw that up? No, I think it's good. Okay, so this is the off-deaf body system. Dr. Alfonso Monzo III, naturopathic doctor. There he is right there. This is a nice big book. It teaches you step by step how you can treat things, opening up pathways, how you can help others. And this is something that you can also get when you use it for the 50% off, I believe, when you do Ballbusters 15 on it, okay? This book is amazing. You should check it out. And I've taken the pre-course, but I have to actually go there in person for the practitioner's course to get, certified and all that. And then there's some equipment that you'd have to get and all that stuff so you can be an actual practitioner. So it's an investment over time. But that is one of the things I am going to do. And I'd never say things like that and not do it. The time frame might be different than most people would expect because they're like, but everything takes its time, and I don't dick around. It's just life is life, and that's how it goes. But when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And I'm going to be a practitioner with the off-deaf body, trained by Dr. Monzo. That's happening. You should check out that link in the description. You should also check out the Dr. Artist membership link in the description. And if you want the cop rain, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you'll see the new link for the cop rain. I don't have it on my website anymore. I ran out of room. I don't have a lot of space. So I put the Dr. Monzo on there. So if you go to semperfiellc.com, you'll see the Dr. Monzo, and you'll see the one for Dr. Peter Glidden as well, which is also in the description for it's Rise Up Into Health /ND Health, whatever. That is also to get to his subscription-based program where he has 2 hours a week that he devotes to live Q&A that you have to be a member for to get access to. When he came on and did Q&A for us, that was a treat. Okay, but you want it twice a week, you go to that site and you get 2 hours a week of Q&A, and it's good times. I'm a member. So all the cool kids are doing it. Why haven't you? Don't worry, I'll wait. Do it now. Did you do it yet? Do it. All right. Bye. Thanks for all the calls.